I've just got a quick question for you actually. Am I single because I haven't basically dedicated myself to God? Am I single because I'm not serving God enough? Or am I single because I'm being too picky? Like, why is it that I'm still single? Hello and welcome back to this channel. My name is Ruth and this is Fragrance of a Flower. And in today's video, I would like to share with you some misconceptions about singleness, and I pray that it will be a blessing to you. So within Christendom, there are many words that, a single Christian may hear in order to explain their singleness. And we may hear words that as soon as you are satisfied with God alone, God will bring you someone special into your life. And when we hear things like that, it kind of seems like God's blessings are based on how content we are in that current situation. Or we may hear phrases like, before you can marry someone great and wonderful, God has to allow you to be this grand and wonderful person. And when we hear phrases like this, it also highlights or suggests that the people who are single are basically haven't made it in life, because if they had made it, they would be married and they would be with this other wonderful and grand person. Although at first glance it may seem that people who are saying these words to us want to encourage us or possibly uplift us, I personally believe that when people say views like this, it kind of suggests that singleness is this deprivation, and it also suggests that those who are single and not married, they are not fully formed, because if they were fully formed, they would be married and they would be with this other grand and wonderful person. So as I reflect on the word and as I reflect on the accounts of the Bible, such as Paul, such as Isaac, and such as Anna the prophetess and other singles in the Bible, I see that God doesn't grant people singleness because they're not there yet or because they're not fully formed, but God grants us the gift of singleness because He knows that in this particular time, for this particular individual, this is what is going to be a blessing to them. And because I'm a God who is loving, I'm a God who is kind, I'm a God who knows the number of hairs on that individual's head, I know that singleness is the best gift that person is going to receive in that particular moment, whether it be for a season or whether it be for a lifetime. God gives us the gift befitting for where we are and what stage we are, based on how He knows us perfectly well. So now as we think about, these misconceptions in terms of singleness, I would like to turn to the account of Anna the prophetess, because I honestly believe in reflecting upon this story, it suggests that singleness isn't because we aren't as close with God or because we need this closer walk with God, but it shows again that even that person who is close with God, who is, seeking God's kingdom with all their heart and mind, God can still give them the gift of singleness because He believes and knows that in that particular time or in that particular lifetime, that is the gift that is going to be the blessing for them, and that is the gift that is going to allow them to do the greater good in sharing the gospel, or even just for their personal stance in terms of who they are. So I want to read Luke chapter 2 in emphasizing this story of Anna. But actually, before we go into this, so background, Anna was a prophetess. She was married for 7 years, but then she was single for 84 years. Even though I personally believe that Anna's desire was to remain single, but let us just think about this emphasis of this point I'm raising about that we are not single because we are lacking in terms of spirituality, or we are lacking in terms of our growth with God. Because we see with Anna, she was dedicated, she was there day and night, but she was single because this was the best gift for her in this time period. So let us read Luke chapter 2 verses 36 to 39, and it says, Anna, a prophetess, was there in the temple. She was the daughter of Phanuel from the tribe of Asher, and she was very old. Her husband died when they had been married only 7 years. Then she lived as a widow to the age of 84. She never left the temple, but stayed there day and night, worshipping God with fasting and prayer. She came along just as Simeon was talking with Mary and Joseph, and she began praising God. She talked about the child to everyone who had been waiting expectantly to God to rescue Jerusalem. When Jesus' parents had fulfilled all the requirements of the law, they returned home to Nazareth in Galilee. So from the account of Anna, it says here that she dedicated God. She was dedicated to God. She served the Lord in fasting and praying in the temple. Imagine, friends, she was only married for 7 years, but she was single for 84 years. We see that Anna was fully dedicated to God. I believe that this was God's will for her. So we see that singleness is not based on being here in terms of our spiritual walk, or singleness is not because she was being too picky, but this is because this was God's will for her, and this was a blessed gift that God gave Anna. So I just want to also read another person that I think of in terms of this misconception, in terms of us being single, and this is taken from Genesis chapter 24 verse 67. So in terms of Isaac, we kind of had this misconception to say that, you know, before we are married, we have to basically be on our high. We have to be on our high when we're, you know, God brings this person. Even though I personally believe, you know, before getting married, we should be dedicated to God. We should at least have a relationship with God, and we should know at least an idea of the aims and values that we want in life, because when we meet that person, it will be easier for us to kind of know if this is the person for us, because we should know if we want to move in the same direction and etc. But I just want to highlight in terms of Isaac's story, this misconception where people say to be married, you have to be on the greatest high, you have to be on this level for God to bring you a spouse, because we see the opposite with Isaac. Isaac, in this time where I'm going to read, Isaac was literally on his lowest point. He lost his mom. He was mourning. He was on an all-time low, because in this verse, it actually says that it was marriage that comforted him. So this misconception of us being on this great high, on this pedestal for God to bring the spouse, is actually a misconception, because as I've said before, God gives us the gifts of singleness because it is the time that God wants us to have it, because it's a blessed gift for us, and God knows us so well to know that that is going to be a blessing. So in terms of Isaac, God knew that he needed to be married in this certain time, even though people may look at him and say, wow, he was mourning. He may not have been there, you know, fully himself at this time. But God granted him, again, the gift of marriage. Singleness is a gift, but also marriage is a gift. And God, you know, gave him this gift in this time. So it says in Genesis chapter 24 verse 67, it says, Isaac brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he married Rebekah, so he became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Again, this story highlights another misconception. As I wrote down here that it says people are not single because they're not at their high. They are single because God knows what is best for them. And in this case, God wanted Isaac to be married when he was in this low point of his life. So we kind of see from the statements that I read out from Anna and also from Isaac that these misconceptions that we have to be fully dedicated on a mission trip to find God. Yes, people do find God that way because, you know, God may lead in that situation, but it's not to show that everyone is going to be finding someone that way, or we have to be fully dedicated in terms of sacrificing all, selling all our goods and our property before we find someone, or before God, as a woman, I'm not finding, I'm waiting, or before that person comes to me. So we see that these misconceptions are actually misconceptions because we've just read 2 accounts, and we see in one story, this person found a spouse when they're on their low, and we see on another account, someone was serving God day and night, but God saw for that person in those 77 years, 84 years of them being single, that was the time when God really said, this is a gift. I know that this is going to be a blessing for you, and I'm giving you this gift of singleness for this particular time, whether it be for 5 years, 10 years, or a lifetime. Whatever gift we are having is because God knows us, He knows what's best, and He knows that that is the best gift for us in terms of our life. So with all that I've said now, this is not to suggest that we are to be stagnant and we are not to do anything, because regardless, things are going to happen and marriage is going to come or marriage is not going to come. Life is just going to happen. This is not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that whatever gift God has given you, whether it be marriage or whether it be single, do all to glorify God. If you see a defect in your character, if you see that you have a temper, change it right now. If you see that you want to be kind, surrender it to God and give God the things that you know you need to change. So I'm saying as well, whatever stage you are, become a better person. Ask God to become a better person. But also I'm suggesting through this video that these misconceptions that we need to be at this place to be married, or when you're not at this place, it just shows that you are not fully formed in your singleness. Dear friends, that is a misconception, because as I'm going to read now, we see that Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 that both marriage and singleness is a gift from God. So I just want to read that to kind of end this video in the misconceptions of singleness, but also showing you that both singleness and marriage is definitely a gift. So it says here, read 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 7. This is Paul speaking. Paul was a single, and even him as a single, he did realize that also marriage is a gift, but also singleness is a gift from God. And it says, I wish that all men, even as I myself, but each one has his own gift from God, one in this manner and the other in that. So we see that here it shows singleness as a gift, but also marriage. And in this chapter, even though Paul is single and he's suggesting that everyone be single, he does say that it's not a sin to be married. So if you have a desire to be married, it's not a sin, dear friends. This is a natural thing. Also just wanted to suggest in this video that singleness is a gift, and as we are single, it's not to show that we are incomplete or we haven't reached that goal in terms of our spiritual life, but we are single because it's a gift from God, and God knows the best for us, and that's why we are being handed with this blessed gift of singleness. So to end this, I want to read an encouraging quote, and this quote is from a book called Let Me Be a Woman by Elizabeth Elliot, and it says, single life may only be a stage of a life's journey, but even a stage is a gift. God may replace it with another gift, but the receiver accepts his gift with thanksgiving. This gift for this day, the life of faith, is lived one day at a time, and it has to be lived. Always look forward to as though the real living were around the next corner. It is the day which we are responsible. God still owns tomorrow. I pray that this video was a blessing to you. I hope you have a blessed day. And please, dear friends, what other misconceptions do you hear about singleness? You know, am I picky? Am I just not this person? That's why I'm single. What other misconceptions do you hear about singleness? Write them in the comments below. Let us share them. And I pray you have a blessed day. Shalom, and see you in this next video. And if you've made it this far, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Let's get this conversation going, and share it with a friend that you know it would be a benefit to. So shalom, and see you in the next video. Bye.